Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome back. We are here for our next session, and the next session is going to, bro. What are you doing?
I'm trying to measure the bar that has been set by the other presenters to see if there's any chance I can reach it. It's pretty far up there. Holy crap!
Oh, that is funny. We didn't have this planned at all.
No,
Oh man, I love you, dude. That was great. our next speaker today is going to be Gary Hill. And he's a 911 coordinator with Warren County 911 out of New Jersey, doing a session called, excuse me, 911. I have the emergency. How my 911 job saved my life. Why your purpose is important. Take it away, brother.
all right. Thank you, Ricardo. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Yes, we Dude and I are in our festive attire today because, well, we got to be festive. Christmas is what 13 days away, so we got to be festive, right? No question about it. Thank you, everybody, for coming and joining my show or session, but it's a show. Let's face it, because where else are you going to get all this, right? Thank you for being here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching from around the world. Just to let you guys know, and you guys already know how special you are, but you are so special. This presentation has never been done before. This presentation is very personal to me. I actually rewrote this entire presentation 48 hours ago after hundreds of drafts, 50 or 60 finals. Don't touch, don't do it again. I still found myself rewriting this entire thing. Those of you that have listened to Ricardo's Imagine Listening episodes, he always has that intro. Uh, you know, if you have a PTSD or suicidal tendencies, you're listening at your own risk. Well, if you do, let me tell you that you're in the right place. You are welcome here. This is a judgment-free zone. I am going to be talking about a critical time of my life, but I want you to know that if you've ever been in that position, you're in the right place because we're going to be talking about how we can get through those difficult times. We're going to talk about how these events actually gave me purpose, how that purpose turned into my passion, and how it taught me about the power of positivity. Who am I? Why am I here? Why do I do this? Again, training is my passion. I am a telecommunicator for 28 years now, 38 years as a volunteer EMT. I'm still sitting in the PST position as a supervising PST, but actually under administrative role as a 911 coordinator and training officer. I prefer to keep the title of supervising telecommunicator, so this way I can make sure that I can still sit the floor. I just worked an overtime shift last night, went at 3 a.m. I need to be able to make sure that I can do what I'm expecting everybody else to do, so that's important to me. Um, if I can't do that, then I don't belong where I'm at. The other part, hi, I'm Gary. I've had a mental health emergency in my life. That's the first time I've ever said that publicly. I'm also the crazy bowling ball guy, if you didn't already figure that part out. And I just dropped my clicker, so I'm going to use my fingers now. How many first responders have had suicidal thoughts? These numbers are actually kind of scary when we look at them. Any number is too high. Yeah, telecommunicators were down to the 2% mark, but that's still way too many. We also have a poll in here where we're asking if you've ever had the opportunity to, oops, we're looking at the poll, to save somebody. People have had an opportunity to save people, so that's great. There is no greater reward than being able to do that. I'm not sure why I lost my screen though. The only option I have is to stop steering. You guys can still see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. And if I move to the next one, did it advance? Because I don't see my PowerPoint anymore for some reason. Oh, what just
Yeah,
happened?
it's still on the screen. Did you click off onto the browser? If so, you have to click back onto your PowerPoint.
That's what it's. There we go. Okay. I knew there'd be a hiccup moment, but hey, if that's the only one, fine. Um, so yeah, the percentages of those that are having those suicidal thoughts or actually even going through with it, again, any number is too many. What we hopefully what we can do to eliminate that, the better. Now, I am not a psychological or a sociology or any type of a clinician, but I have stayed at a Holiday Inn Express at least once. Um, it's been a long road, but again, what we're going to talk about today, this is not coming from the medical field itself, just so you're aware of that. So, who wants to take a little ride? We got the family truckster already, all packed up. Let's take a ride down the road. Now, the way we envision our lives is like this, right? Nice, windy, smooth road. It's nice. No bumps, no potholes, none of that. It's a nice, easy, leisurely ride. But let's face it, that's not always life. Life is sometimes like this. Sometimes we're going down this hill full force. Oh, and by the way, the brakes just went out. That's not going to be a good time. That just makes life more interesting, more rewarding at the end, actually. We'll find out more about that in a minute. Growing up, Sam, put your camera down. I was a normal kid. This is where I was growing up in southeastern Michigan, unlike Ricardo, who was in southwestern Michigan. I was going to hope to try and find my clicker again. There we go. Growing up in southeastern Michigan, by the way, go blue. During a time of my life, I learned through therapy that there was uh, something else that was troubling me in life, and I buried it too deep that it was troubling me, but I didn't understand how or why. I had difficulties going to my nieces and nephews' little league games. I would feel angry easily and really didn't understand why. Then through therapy, it came out that shortly after getting my new bike, I learned quickly that the grip of my bestest friend ever, Jenny, um, her grip on my hand was stronger than the attempted abductors on my arm. That happened at a Little League baseball game that was right behind my house when I grew up in Michigan. To this day, I see certain elderly gentlemen with a strong odor of cigarette on their breath. I can feel tingling on my right arm. I have a instant flashback of somebody grabbing my arm. But I can't live in the past. Jenny and me, we were like peas and carrots. And then Dad had to move us to New Jersey. He had a choice, California or New Jersey. Still not sure. You kind of wonder, hey, how would my life turned out if I moved to California instead of New Jersey? Well, I can tell you it would have been worse because I would have ever gotten an opportunity to meet and date my beautiful wife, Tammy, who was on the right there. That was our very first picture together at one of our local fairgrounds. We had old dot matrix printers print out a photograph of you. So if we had moved to California, I would have never got a chance to meet the love of my life. So I'm very thankful for that. And even though I was already starting to bowl in Michigan, I really picked up bowling a lot more in New Jersey, so I'm very thankful for that as well. But meeting Tammy, it was wonderful, but came with a few other things as well. Tammy was third generation EMS in our local volunteer community. She actually grew up right next to the emergency squad building. And if I wanted to be around Tammy, I had to be around the rescue squad. So that forced me to join the rescue squad. Well, that subject to me to my very first oh crap moment. My very first call was for a shooting victim. I had no training whatsoever. I went there. I was given a task to hold stabilization. Didn't even understand what the hell I was doing, but they kind of showed me on somebody else. Just hold the head still while we package him. This guy was shot in the forehead with a small caliber weapon. That next night and for about a week afterwards, I had dreams of being chased around by a guy with a hole in his head. It was interesting. Also, being around Tammy introduced me to the rest of her family, and introducing me to the rest of her family including my now brother-in-law, Bruce, who was a longtime AAA person, who got me my first real job working at AAA. That's where I'm at there, selling insurance, memberships, you name it. I pretty much sold it out of the AAA office. However, the EMS experience I was getting at this point, I just got my EMT as well. I started having some medical problems. I was 19 years old at the time, and I had experienced my first pneumothorax, which is a collapsed lung. Something that turned out to be issues I was born with. I would end up having this reoccur 7 times in my life. 3 times life-threatening. 2 of those times, I'm not really sure how I survived. I was found in a parking lot at the hospital where I had a tension pneumothorax. But somebody told me it just wasn't my time. Just keep rolling. So that's what we did. We kept rolling. A few years later, after being on the squad and listening to the scanner a little bit, I kind of piqued an interest about 911. And I thought, hey, that sounds really cool. Our local 911 center had just opened a couple years prior. I went there, got the job. And I remember feeling very happy. Finally landed a more stable job, really good health insurance for the family. I had also taken a job at another local PSAP, a little 2-seater seat PSAP, only one of us on duty at a time. I did that a couple years after this picture. I was in a really good spot. It was a long time ago. No, we weren't chiseling our CAD cards on stone like everybody thinks. We were actually using computers as old as they look. But I was in a really good place, making a good wage, enough that my wife could stay home and take care of Jackie, work part-time. I was well respected in the community through my EMS work. I had even won a national award, or our group had won a national award that I was command of for an extrication save. That was a national award. That was something that little old Stewartsville, New Jersey had never heard of before. There was people showing up at the emergency squad building, taking pictures of the news van parked in front of it because our closest news agency was coming out of Philadelphia or New York. They never even knew we existed out here. So that was kind of a big thing. So after all of that, not being abducted, not actually dying from my health issues, being in a really good place, how in the world could somebody even think about throwing all of that away? Depression sneaks up on you. You don't know about it. You don't expect it. I was 15, 16 years in the EMS, a lot of calls I dealt with, a lot of calls on the EMS side. Things were happening at home that I couldn't control. And since this is a condensed version, I'm not going to go into that side of it. But there's one important thing I want to point out. We say that suicide is a selfish thing. And looking at it from the other side, yes, I would, and I probably said the same thing myself. But being somebody who's been in that position, let me tell you, the last thing they're thinking about is themselves. They're thinking about how much better off people are going to be without them. The closest thing they're thinking about themselves is that the pain's going to go away. Everybody is hurt from time to time. When that person is thinking about that, they're thinking how much better off everybody else is going to be. Better off that they'll be without them. I won't be the trouble in their lives anymore. So much so that when it was time for me to, I made my decision. I wanted to make sure I did it right, because the last thing I wanted to do was be a bigger problem to somebody. I had a plan in place. I had a note written. I had a gift prepared for the person that was going to find me, along with a note for them saying I was sorry for doing what I did and what they were going to have to do. I was strategic in my planning, in that the person that would find me was somebody who was actually in law enforcement, somebody who had actually dealt with this kind of thing before. This actually is the location of where I was going to do it. I actually just took this picture here about a year ago. Not sure if you can see it, but actually on the picture on the right, you should be able to see the words "I am sorry" and the ice pick that's still sitting on that beam, along with, down by the light, one of the metal strips that's pulled off of the ceiling beam from a practice attempt. I recall looking out that window at the time and seeing everything kind of, all the leaves stopped moving, nothing was happening. It was weird. But I was so numb with depression and anger. It turns out that I had really crappy knot skills. Fortunately, the length of rope was a little too short. I wasn't planning on having to tie it around a huge I-beam. Tried a few other ways, ended up being unsuccessful. I remember being even more disgusted with the fact that I couldn't even do it right. I was finally prepared to do it, and I couldn't do it. So, being the overthinker that I am, and the overplanner that I am, I had a secondary plan in place as well. And said, screw it. But we'll go with plan B instead. At the time I was working nights. I was working a lot of nights. Part of masking the other problem was for me to work as much as possible in an attempt to deal with other problems. And I was working nights. Tammy knew I was working basically every night of the week. This particular night was my regularly scheduled night off, but I typically worked overtime anyways. But this night, somebody else had already signed up for it, so I was going to be able to get away with having a night off. But I didn't tell Tammy. My plan was go home, do my couple hours of sleep, get up, and then do my things. That night, that evening, having dinner with the family, I gave Jackie an extra hug that night, a little stronger hug and kissed to wife, and went down to do my power nap before I would go in. Went upstairs, and the phone rang. Ed, the on-duty sergeant, had called. Hey, Hank, That was my nickname then because I looked like Hank Hill for some reason. My head was shaved and I just looked different. Hank, we got a call off. You want to come into work? I immediately said no because I had plans. He said, come on, Hank. The guys feel safer with you on the desk. The guys feel safer with you on the desk. How do you say no to that? This is probably the only one that I've found of me as we'll go with a toddler dispatcher. Wasn't quite an infant. I was, I think, 3.5 years on the job. But Ed said, Hank, I'm going to have your coffee and your favorite donut sitting here waiting for you. So again, how do you say no to that? The guys are counting on you. So, as I've always done before, kick the can down the road. All right, fine. There's always tomorrow. You can wait till tomorrow. Those of you that have seen my other sessions, Ripple sessions, about the positivity and call taking, talk about how I'm a firm believer in that things happen for a reason. This is another one of those examples about how things happen for a reason. Within an hour and a half of taking that shift, I take a 911 call. Not just any 911 call, but a call from a suicidal male. About 10 years younger than me at the time. He was very determined. He had a weapon. He wouldn't provide a location. I hadn't had a whole lot of suicidal call training at the time, but the hair on my arms kind of stood up, and I'm not really sure what happened to me, but I kind of went into a different mode. This was also the era of phase 2 911 cell phone calls, where we were just starting to get latitude, longitude. And I was the geek back then. I was the guy who read the NCIC code manuals, all the other manuals that we had as a way to stay awake during nights. I also read all the material that came in from the state on this new fancy 911 latitude, longitude stuff. Because of that, I was able to figure out where this guy was. With that, that gave me more confidence in dealing with this gentleman. So much more so that I was actually able to talk him away from the weapon. I was able to talk to him about things that were important in his life, because I talked to him about things that were important to my life. I was able to talk to him about things that mattered. I saved somebody by doing so. We were able to get law enforcement officers there to him. Again, he stepped away from the weapon. We were able to get him the help that he needed. I saved someone that night. I gave them purpose to live. This person gave me purpose to go on another day. About 2 days later, I was working another overtime shift when the family came in. They wanted to thank the officers for saving their son. They weren't just the parents. He had 2 siblings and those 2 other cousins that actually came in. And one of the cousins looked at me and said, wow, this is really cool to be here at the police department and talk about a positive event. Because typically whenever you're at the police station, it's always something very negative. It's at that moment that I realized the ripple effect that I had created. These people now had a happier feeling of dealing with the police department. That when they are going to call in the future, they're going to remember that, hey, these are the people who saved my brother, my cousin, my son. That ripple effect continued to travel. It also gave me purpose. It showed me where my passion truly is. Because from that point forward, I wanted everybody to have that same feeling that I did. I saved somebody's life. I wanted to train our other dispatchers on that new 911 technology so they had the opportunity to be able to save somebody as well. And it didn't just stop there. I wanted to learn everywhere. I wanted to teach everything. I found myself going and getting my instructor certifications in EMD. Back then, it was called Emergency Communications Officer certifications, APCO supervisor, communication supervisor course. Even though we didn't have a supervisor at our 911 center there at the time, but I was doing it because I wanted to learn more. I wanted to prepare myself to train others more. It became my passion. But even though I was doing all of this on my own dime, on top of it, what else happened? What else was missing there? What's missing is the fact that I never dealt with the real problem. I simply masked it. Although my earlier depression issues kind of, well, to me, they disappeared, but in reality, all I did was stuff them down deeper. All I was doing was that mental health illness I was having, I was just simply masking with my training. It was a good masking, but it's still, I never fixed what needed to be fixed. That went on for several years. And as life continues, once you deal with one thing, somebody says, hey, here's another bag of leaky crap for you. So after many years of doing the field work in EMS, now on call taking, dispatching, being the family go-to guy for when dad battled cancer, somebody up there decided to throw something else in my lap. Mom, an extremely independent person, was diagnosed a few years after dad passed with dementia, vascular dementia to be precise. Vascular dementia challenges and changes your cognitive abilities a lot faster than regular Alzheimer's. I found myself being the primary caregiver for my mom, being her advocate for proper care. That went on for a while as well. But guess what? It was just something else to throw on top of my other issues. So things continued to just get masked and put inside the barrel and just pushed down like a bag of leaves. See how many more leaves we can fit in there just by get on top of it and stomp on it if we have to, right? Eventually the side blows out. After a little bit of time, I was a dick at home. I was very angry. I was upset. Sorry again, Tammy. I learned about caregiver support groups. If anybody out there is caring for a loved one, or if that is part of your regular job, is to care for these individuals, no matter what the capacity is, caregiver support groups, I back 100,000%. They are what helped me get through that difficult time as well. That is where I learned about the power of positivity. Because I was waking up every morning, going in and taking care of a negative person at this point, taking that absorbed negativity into work with me, which we all know what happens there, right? When you're displaying negativity, it becomes contagious. Let's add on a bunch of 911 crap. Let's add on a bunch of volunteer EMS crap. Let me tell you, that dumpster was getting pretty goddamn full. Full of resentment, hate, anger, calls that had bothered me. And let's not forget somebody had a problem a few years back that he never had it taken care of professionally. Just kept masking it. But I kept pushing through. My power of positivity, my marvelous Mondays, tremendous Tuesdays, wonderful Wednesdays, and waiting for those comical days of dementia to show up like I was promised. Those comical days never showed up. It was never fun for mom to have her battles. Again, that went on for even longer. But again, just more stuff to mask my real problem. 2018, a coworker had told me about a podcast. Podcast? What the hell is that? Is it something that's available on a cassette or 8-track? All right, maybe I'm not that old, but there was a time in my life I remember listening to something on cassette and 8-track. But I remember at that time, I needed to present myself in the best manner possible. I was dealing with my mom. I was moving up at work. I had moved to the county facility at that point for a good 6, 7, 8 years now. And I was getting promoted, going into QA, developing a QA program. Things were really starting to get interesting in life. So again, I learned about this podcast. I started listening to it. I was displaying myself on the outside as an 8, 9, but in reality, I was only about a 1 or 2 inside at best. It was difficult dealing with calls. Not only am I taking calls on the floor, but I'm doing QA calls as well. So the calls that I thought I'm escaping, I'm not escaping because now I have to QA those calls. I found myself getting emotional listening to those calls. I found myself getting more emotional handling calls. There were times when I was doing QA calls where I would actually hear my daughter's voice and the young caller's voice. It wasn't my daughter calling, obviously, but in my head, I was hearing my daughter cry. But the podcast taught me something. It taught me that I'm not the only one that feels this way. It taught me that by listening to some of these episodes, I learned how other agencies, how other call takers, dispatchers were dealing with those difficult calls. It was helping. But again, I was masking the issue. The episodes taught me that how I could release the call by sharing it. There was a call that had actually broken me in dispatch. And for time constraints, we're going to get into that today, but I was able to release that call at the APCO 2019 in Baltimore. That's when I met Ricardo for the very first time. And I was able to release my call during his Imagine Listening episode. The weight that came off of my chest was amazing. It felt good. But it was short-lived because I had to go back to work and continue taking care of mom, continue answering the EMS calls, continue listening to doing the QA calls, continuing to deal with the callers that are calling in every day, asking for help, pleading for help, trying to get them the best help they can, listening to the moms and dads cry about their infant that isn't breathing. Just do it. We'll worry about that shit afterwards. Eventually, my job was getting to the best of me. I got called in and I had to take some forced time off to check myself, as they put it. We know what's going on with mom. At this point, mom was nearing the end stages of life. I was forced to stay at home. Was told not to listen to the squad pager. Was told not to listen to any calls. They took my access away from the CAD on my computers. which basically left me home to do chores, do what Tammy wanted me to do, which made her very happy. Allowed me to listen to more episodes. Again, things happen for a reason. There was an episode that happened, and again, actually, this before I got stepped out, I remember handing out the EAP cards to people when they dealt with a difficult call, and one day saying to myself, "Hey, idiot, why don't you take one for yourself?" There's a thought. But there was an episode that I listened to. Somebody really, really strong in that episode recognized that they needed help, and they took the step to get help. For the first time ever, I picked up the phone and I called EAP. I called and asked for help. That was a huge step, but it was just one of many. To make matters worse, it was a Sunday. Nobody was answering the phone. Somebody did eventually call me back that afternoon, but I made the call. I made that step. Finally talking with somebody how to properly deal with the issues that I was dealing with. Understanding that this is not going to be a once and done thing. Yes, I still see my therapist on a regular basis. After all, the road we're traveling on hasn't come to an end, right? There's going to be other stuff. Things are going to happen. Why is it that it takes so long? Why don't we ask for help? I was so thankful for that episode. I was thankful that I was forced to take time off of work, because had I not, I would not have listened to that episode before I reached out for help, to get the help that I needed to then deal with a bigger issue. And that was dealing with Mom when she finally passed. I had to deal with that. So why is it that it takes us so long to ask for help? If we get a flat tire, we call for a tow truck. If we break our leg, we go to the doctor. So why is it that when our brain is broken, we don't do anything about it? Is it perhaps we don't have a check engine light for ourselves? Could be. And let's face it, we all know that it's just like when you got to take your car into the shop. It's not just the tire. If your check engine light is on, you know they're going to have to do a much more diagnostic review. Same thing with our head. But we can't let that be the excuse. We know we can't just put air in our head. We know we can't just put a cast on our head. It's going to take time. But it's okay. We can do that. But instead, what do? We just throw duct tape on those wounds, right? We'll deal with it. Again, listening to those podcasts, it helped. Yes, we did have that one call that finally got me to reach out and make the call. But being a typical guy, being stubborn that I am, you think I followed up with my appointments all the time? No, too strong for this shit. I'm going to win. It's amazing how we forget stuff. Listening to the podcasts, it helped. Reading books, it helped. Seeing the therapist every once in a while instead of on a regular basis, like we're supposed to. Mr. Joe Sergio talks about consistency. Mental health work needs to be consistent as well. Just like any other success story that's out there, they had a plan. That's how all successful people get through something. They have a plan. You can't diagnose mental health illness yourself. If you can, you sure as hell can't treat it, at least not appropriately. I'm not saying that everybody's going to need visits for an extended period of time, but what can be accomplished is this: the realization of what's happening. Sitting down with somebody and having a face-to-face discussion, and him saying, "Oh, those intrusive thoughts, guess what? Everybody has those. Nobody ever told me that before." My intrusive thoughts were a little crazier, but usually reflecting to EMS calls that I've handled. In 2020, I also found out through the regular, what then became more regular episodes with the therapist, was that I was a workaholic. Dealing with everything, I fueled that workaholic through my training, through working harder, again, just masking everything. But there was still that major thing that needed to be dealt with, and that was saying goodbye to mom. And saying goodbye to mom was in May of 2020, right when COVID was really, really ramping up. We couldn't do anything. We couldn't have funerals. Mom's wish was to be cremated. So we had one opportunity to go in for our end of life visit. I remember doing a FaceTime with my brother Tom, my Aunt Carol, giving us that opportunity to say goodbye. Learning that people with Alzheimer's or dementia, when they begin to get that near end of life, they can't communicate anymore. So their way of saying it's time to let me go is they stop eating. So mom stopped eating. We made sure that she was comfortable. She went 17 days without eating. And then the day came, things went really, really fast. So much so is I still have dreams to this day that because I never got to actually see mom at the end, praying that it wasn't a paperwork mix up and that mom's at some other facility still alive somewhere. Those are the dreams that I have. The other bigger part I needed to deal with was the guilt of feeling relief that mom was gone. This chapter of my life had finally come to an end. About 10 and a half years. It finally come to an end. And I could turn the page to go on to the next chapter of my life, but I was reluctant in doing so. It took time. It took time. It took reality. It took phone calls. It took conversations. It took one-on-one real discussions with my family, which took really, really long to happen. It also took time to deal with other issues and finding ways to deal with that. Finding an emotional support object. Dude, even though that wasn't the intention in the beginning, that's what he's become. All of this, I was slowly peeling away the layers of what I was masking all these years and finally healing, getting better, feeling better about myself, feeling confident, feeling positive, because I was able to get rid of all of that stuff. Again, Joe Suryo talks about consistency in things. Taking care of your mental health needs to be done with consistency as well. This is what healing can look like. These are the things that can actually happen. Because of that, exercise, taking time to do things, feeling more confident about yourself, spending time with family. My exercising, bottom right, that is Mount Rainier in Washington. Not in the background, but we didn't summit Mount Rainier. You need special passes to do that stuff and special training, but I think we did about 6,000 feet with the bowling ball on my back. More exercise got me to finally do a Spartan race. I've done 3 of them now, all with dude in my backpack on my back. Realizing that family time is important, more important than anything. far as the dude, yes, Keely, you have. um, that is a whole nother class all in itself, his creation and what he's done for myself and for others. So watch out for that in the future. But again, it's about being positive, being energetic. I released those problems. I was working through them. It made me more confident. It made me more positive and more passionate about what I was doing. And how can that really be? How can you be more positive on the days that you're feeling down? Through a Forbes magazine article, we got 4 keywords that we can do that with, how we can help display and be more positive around our people. Because again, we don't want negativity, we want positivity. Using the word yet, all right? I didn't lose, I just haven't won yet. Taking that negative, turning it into a positive, because you're gonna win someday. Instead of saying you have to do something, you get to do something. A lot of times I hear people say, I got to go up to the director's office. I get to go up to the director's office. There's going to be an opportunity, whether I've done something good or bad, I'm going to learn something. Remember that you're going to learn something. No matter how difficult life is, doesn't matter who's shitting your Cheerios, you're going to learn from it. If you're going to cover up that bowl next time. Turn yes, but into yes, and. But that's going to create a lot more work. No. Yeah, we can do that. And we can offer more services. Again, 4 simple ways to turn something negative to positive. Instead of going through something, I'm growing through this. We grow through what we go through in life. If life was easy, it wouldn't be entertaining, exciting, or fun. We got to learn. The power of positivity. Remember, the tone that you have is going to be displayed in front of everybody. I can walk into work and people can tell when I'm in a bad mood. There are times where I have to check myself before I open up that final door going into the comm center. Do I have the best face on today for these people? Making sure that my power of positivity is being displayed. Because negativity is contagious, positivity is contagious too. Stay away from those negative people. They're the ones that always seem to have the problem for your solutions, right? But this is the one I love best from Albert Einstein. Life is like a bicycle. In order to keep your balance, you got to keep moving. Just keep rolling is my new slogan. Just keep rolling. Positivity is actually fueling my passion for what I love to do. Now that my head is clear through my therapy, I've been able to focus on what I've really wanted to do since I found that passion for training. And that is to share my years of knowledge all around the country. Speaking at national conferences, local conferences, state conferences. They've all been healing to me because now I'm able to do that. 2023 was a rather expensive year. I did a lot of conferences, a lot of sessions, and they were all on my own dime. My center only pays for my state conferences. Everything else I did myself, but it was okay. I had the backing of my wife. She tagged along with me on a lot of them. It made it a lot of fun. I got to realize now that it might be an addiction, but it's a good addiction. Just keep rolling, right? But you always got to be prepared for what's going to come around the bend. Remember I talked about listening to that one podcast, the one that talked to me? That person, that strong person that needed help and they finally found the courage to call for help, made me call for help. Yeah, you got to be prepared for those unexpected challenges, physically, more importantly, mentally. They're going to happen. That was episode 305. That was Nicole Ford's episode. I recall sending her an email after listening to that episode saying thank you. Thank you for the courage to share your story. Feeling thankful that she reached out for help because she was able to share the story. But more importantly, I wanted her to know that she helped somebody else. And that was the reason why she shared her story. I remember wanting to thank her in person. And finding out when I went to National APCO in Nashville that she had lost her battle with mental health just 1 week prior. It was a kick in the balls. No question about it. Nicole, thank you. I hope you are at peace. But thank you for being there for myself and for many others. PST 911, the movie, had been being featured in a lot of large cities that were hundreds of miles away. I remember thinking how I would love to be able to see that. Nicole wasn't featured in that movie. Was it a coincidence that 1 week after the conference, Conrad brought this movie to a church that was less than about an hour away from me in Pennsylvania? A strange coincidence, I believe. I'd never met Conrad before. I remember seeing a glimpse of him when I first walked in. Tammy joined me. Yes, I had my therapist on speed dial on my phone that evening. I told him what I was going to do and that it was probably going to be an emotional night, and it was. But I remember making eye contact with Conrad in the lobby, and he kind of paused. He was walking somewhere, and he paused, and we just made eye contact. And then he continued on with what he was doing, but it was interesting. It was almost like he looked at me like, hey, I know you or something. Afterwards, I stuck around and we hugged. We talked about Nicole, and we hugged some more. And we both sat there and said, it's truly amazing the impact one person can have, even though you've never met that person before. It's amazing the impact you can have. It's amazing the impact you can have. Yes, you, by reaching out to people that might be in need one day. You recognizing somebody might be in need. Taking the time to reach out to them and saying, hey, you okay? Just keep rolling. How is it that I can help when I might recognize certain things, or myself? Depression sucks. Been there, done it. Never go it alone. Those negative or intrusive thoughts, pre-plan how you might battle them. I go to work a little differently today. I don't travel down certain roads. Some days when I'm feeling extra confident, I will travel down those roads, and I will look at that house that I have an intrusive thought about, and I will say, you're not winning. I'm not letting you into my head today. You don't pay rent. Get the hell out. Having that person to talk to is critical. Making sure that you are not falling back on things that mask it, such as drugs or alcohol. Be active. Sitting around doesn't help. Been there, done that. Get out, go for a walk, go for a hike. 911 hikes on Facebook. you ever want to go for a hike, feel free to post your pictures on there. A little group I created a while back for our hiking adventures. The other side we need to look for ourselves, our loved ones, people around us. We still have people that have these struggles. Tammy knows what to look for when I am depressed. She knows what to look for to make sure that it's not gotten worse. I know what to look for when I need to make a therapy session. Watch out for certain patterns. People talking about it openly, reckless behaviors, writing suicide notes, not finding joy in things that they used to do all the time. It's big. Starting to go a little too long here. Can't do that. What helps me to get to work on my challenging days? Eric Thomas, for one of them, E.T. He's the one who's taught us that the road has many twists and turns. The bigger the pain, the bigger the reward. John Ron has taught us that time is more valuable than money. You can always earn more money, but you can never earn more time. My favorite, good old Les Brown. He's the one who taught us that everything's always possible. There are winners, there are losers, and then there are those who just haven't learned how to win yet. Don't give up on the possible. I've been bowling for 47 years. I had hundreds and hundreds of 279s, 289s, 290s. I had never had that 300 game. It always been the elusive. I was always chasing that elusive 300 perfect game. Finally happened. I didn't give up on the possibility. Clark Griswold, during his family vacation, did he give up? No. He may not have handled it correctly, but he didn't give up. Don't give up. What does happiness really look like? For me, this is what happiness looks like. Nothing makes me happier than going to conferences, meeting people, meeting all of you amazing heroes that are out there, and asking to have the picture taken with dude. Makes me all warm and fuzzy inside. Occasionally I get emotional, but it's okay. We can do that. It's what makes me happy. It's the important part. And Roxy, I know you're out there. Thank you. Thank you. You came and approached me at the party of the NINA 2024 in the lobby. And you told me to stay strong. I don't know why. You saw something in my eye. Even though I was there to present at a national conference, I was excited, but at the same time, I've been dealing with some stuff. You saw something in my eye, and you approached me and you told me to stay strong. Thank you. Because again, shit happens. But I've learned through therapy how I can deal with stuff. We all can. It's okay to not be okay. Just can't stay that way, right? Do what you've got to do to fill your life with happiness. There's a whole nother section I can go on to about that, but we won't. Yes, bow tie, bro. That's it. Ricardo. Yeah, that's you. This has officially been a full circle. For me to finally publicly say what I've been able to do, how I can now inspire others. Thank you for giving us this platform to learn, to challenge, to cry, to laugh, to heal, to flourish like the heroes that the dispatchers around the world are. We owe you so much more. Thank you so much. Do we have any questions? Again, no matter how bad life can get from time to time, just keep rolling. Keep going another day and another day and another day. Thank you for your greatness. Thank you again, Ricardo, for this. I had mine ready, Keely. Thank you, Sam. Again, my contact information is on here. Feel free to reach out at any time. The QR code is for if you want to follow a dude on Facebook. Now, Farmer's Almanac tells us that we might have some snow this year, so dude will get to do some sleigh riding, hopefully. It's another one of the things I like to do is have him go sleigh ride and post it on TikTok. But with that,
Very well.
Back over to you, sir.
Very well done, my friend. Thank you so much for the kind words, the kudos, and for you coming on and sharing your story, just being so open. It takes a lot, right? It takes a ton to have the courage to just open up and just let it out there. And I think that's why what makes you and a lot of folks so good at what you do and speaking as well, because those are the types that people can really, really connect with,
Yeah.
are the ones that give a bit of themselves. And your full circle moments, just everything that happened. Damn. Um,
It's been a road. Just a couple of weeks going back into the therapy session and saying, "Are you ready for this?" I'm ready. But then all week long, questioning myself, challenging myself. Yes, you can do this. We can get through this. We will get through this. I have
hell
to,
yes.
because there's people out there who need to hear that, and that's the most important thing.
That is definitely that there is, it's just kind of a beacon of hope, really, that it's down in the comments. It's apparently a little dusty in my office today.
Yeah. As I sit here with tissue in my hand.
And it's completely okay.
Yeah.
It is
We're
fully
human.
okay. And
We're supposed to.
I I love the engagement, all the comments, all of this. You have to go back and read all of this. I mean,
Yeah.
Sam alone over here, Gary, the bar has been blown to smithereens. Thank you for being
I
you
don't
and
know.
impacting 911 forever.
Thank you. Thank you all very much again for attending my session, my show with Dude. He's saying thank you. You can't hear it, but I can.
Amazing, man. Amazing as always. And I just feel blessed to know you. So thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for everything and what you do for this profession. And it's a good thing we have a few moments before the next one so I can clear the dust out of this room as
Yeah, right.
well.
Now I can go back to the 2 hour presentation that this is supposed to be for something else. So it's like, okay, I can go back to working on that one again.
No, definitely. This was amazing. Thank you so much for going through your
Thank you.
story, sharing, and again, just being so open with everything. This is what people need to see. That's what this whole conference has been about. Daring to
Yeah.
be great. All of the topics, powerful stories. That's what this is about. So thank you. I appreciate you. And for everyone who is watching and listening, get a hold of Gary. Talk to him. Dude is awesome, man. And the dude as well.
Thank you.
Both are
Yep.
excellent. Get a picture with him if you see him out there in the wild and stuff. It is always fun, man. And bow tie crew.
There you
That's
go.
how we do it. All right. Well, for those who are watching and listening as well, we are going to be going to our next session. That's going to be with Marissa. I think it's Al Moyer. If I said that wrong, Marissa, I apologize. I'll say it better the next time. But her session is PTSD. Me? No way. She will be doing this session here in just a moment, and we will see you all in the next one.
See you, everyone.